I compost at home. Throw all the food scraps in a pile in the back of the yard. I don't turn it. I know I should. But still, composting reduces my weekly trash so much. Several towns across the North Country have tried to ramp up that individual composting to scale. But it hasn't been easy, and many have failed. We look into the latest efforts to compost from towns and a local businessman. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street, Glens Falls.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, August 12th. First up, crews in St. Lawrence and Franklin counties are still working to repair dozens of roads washed out in last Friday's storm. St. Lawrence County Sheriff Rick Engel warned drivers to beware of uneven road surfaces, and he urged them to drive cautiously, reduce speed, and look out for workers making those repairs. Governor Kathy Hochul says state teams will help assess the damage from the storm so they can apply for federal disaster help. But in the meantime, Hochul says the state's Homes and Community Renewal Agency will be able to provide some assistance to affected homeowners, including in St. Lawrence and Franklin counties.
All these homeowners who've been impacted will be eligible for grants of up to $50,000 to help pay for reimbursement of expenses related to the storm that aren't covered by insurance or other disaster relief. This is a newer program.
St. Lawrence County's Office of Emergency Services created a damage self-reporting tool. You can find a link to that on our website, ncpr.org. A handful of cannabis shops in St. Lawrence County were raided last week. Law enforcement arrested staff at 2 shops in Ogdensburg, 2 in Gouverneur, and 1 in Canton. They also seized between $900 and $7,000 in cash from the stores. According to the district attorney's office, all 5 cannabis shops are now closed. Recreational cannabis is legal in New York, but the state has struggled with unlicensed and illegal shops all around the state. Last Thursday's raid comes about a year after police raided 7 other cannabis shops in St. Lawrence County. What we do with our food waste is becoming an increasingly pressing question. Landfills are overflowing, and they emit greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. Experts say the best solution might be composting. But what's the best way to compost in rural places like the North Country, where resources are limited and communities are spread out? NCPR intern Skylar White tried to answer those questions.
Carter Rowley is sticking a giant thermometer into a pile of what looks like dirt.
Yeah, so right here, I just turned this pile. Can you smell it?
Mm-hmm. I think it smells like wood, but Rowley says there's a lot more to it than that.
I guess I'm like a compost sommelier, so I was going to go with like rich oak tannins, and then also like silage. It kind of reminds me of like the nostalgic smells from a country fair. That's what compost should smell like.
Rowley owns Blue Line Compost in Bloomingdale, outside of Saranac Lake. He says he's composted his food scraps his whole life. It always seemed like the most logical thing to do, and he wanted to bring the service to his community.
Honestly, I see our local environment and certainly the global environment changing rapidly, and it really scares me. And I could, keep doing my other job and building second and third homes for people that's just incredibly consumptive. Or I could try to do something that's making a difference.
Food waste in landfills makes up between 8 and 10% of greenhouse gas emissions. It's mostly from the methane that's produced when food breaks down without oxygen. Rowley says that's why oxygen is a key player in the science of composting.
One of our jobs is to make sure that these piles have plenty of oxygen so that the thermophilic bacteria can thrive. And if it doesn't have enough oxygen, you're going to get that really gross, noxious smell that everyone's afraid of with composting.
As of January 2022, New York requires businesses that produce more than 2 tons of food waste per week and are within 25 miles of a composting facility to compost. And lawmakers are considering halving that to 1 ton. Now, restaurants, universities, and hospitals have to figure out a new system. Sue Powers at Clarkson University is helping connect them to local programs that can process their food scraps.
We can't expect that more businesses will have to comply, and therefore they need to have these services. And that's part of the reason that we're working hard to support these community scale compost businesses, is because that they need a place.
Powers is a big advocate for community scale composting. She says if you don't have enough land or time to build your own compost pile, paying a local business to compost your food waste is great for the economy.
It's a way to add economic value, especially to our small farmers as well. So we get the circular economy of keeping those nutrients in the system, goes back into the food supply, but it's also good local, small-scale development.
But it definitely comes with challenges. Cherie and Dan Witten own a farm outside of Potsdam and run the biggest composting program in the area. Their facility is only at 20% capacity of what they built it for, but Dan says they're still struggling to fit it all in.
The time and energy to pull it all together is just a constant drain, and when you're trying to do 3 other things at the same time, it's a little taxing on everybody involved.
Even though it's hard work and some folks are hesitant to spend the extra cash, Carter Rowley says community composting is worth it. It's simpler than commercial composting or landfilling, more sustainable, and it keeps your dollars local.
When you pay us to take your waste away instead of a giant, trash hauling business, your money is staying in the community. Like Dana and I eat at your restaurant. The giant trash haulers don't eat at your restaurant.
He also wants people to know that sending your trash to the landfill isn't actually free. We just don't see the costs because they're subsidized. There are also social and environmental costs that go unseen. Jen Perry owns Compost for Good, a support service for sustainable food waste management in the North Country. Right now, she's helping launch a coalition called N4C to take some of the pressure off individual composters.
It's basically a commitment that we're all going to work together. We're not going to actively compete with each other. We're going to build each other up, find ways to partner with each other, share resources.
She says that industrial composting is usually based on individualism, isolation, and competition. This coalition is symbolic of the opposite philosophy.
It's just embedding into every aspect of what we do the same ethos behind community scale composting of regeneration and circular economy.
Right now, N4C is waiting on a website launch through the Adirondack North Country Association. Perry says she hopes that a united front will help the idea of community composting permeate further in the region. That'll create more sustainable and resilient North Country communities for years to come. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Skylar White in Bloomingdale.
NCPR's Climate Change series is made possible through the generous support of Margot and John Ernst. And thanks to our most excellent intern, Skylar White, who did an incredible amount of great reporting this spring and summer. We're really going to miss you, Skylar. Good luck going forward. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Ben Sharon of Watertown and Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.